Greetings and welcome everybody from around the world. I'd like to firstly introduce myself. My name is Richa Gandhi and I am from Endeavor, Japan, and I lead the entrepreneur selection and growth. I welcome you all today to EndeavHER. For those of you who are not familiar with EndeavHER, this is a program to support, elevate, and help female founders accelerate the growth of their companies and as a result, inspire the next wave of female entrepreneurs from around the world. This is the fourth event of this year, and this event is powered by British Embassy Jakarta through the UK-Indonesia Tech Hub in collaboration with Endeavor Indonesia for the Nurture to Scale program. EndeavHER is a quarterly webinar conducted by 6 countries in the larger Endeavor APAC network. These include Endeavor Indonesia, Endeavor Malaysia, Endeavor Philippines, Endeavor Japan, Endeavor Vietnam, and lastly, Endeavor Singapore. Today, we have an amazing number of registrants, and I thank you all who have expressed interest, especially all our partners who have helped us spread the word about EndeavHER. To kick off today's webinar, I would like to firstly invite you to Oki Nikiulu, who is the Director of UK-Indonesia Tech Hub, to welcome and greet everybody here. Please, Oki. Oki, I think your mute is on.
I've been on mute. We do these typical conferences every day, and that we know to unmute ourselves. Once again, good morning. Selamat pagi, Ohio, Boy Sangta Delay. Such a pleasure to be here, and amongst all these powerful women and ladies, and of course to all of our viewers this morning from across the region and beyond. I truly do value events like these, which we should have more often, actually. And of course, I'd like to greet our speakers today as well. We have Denise Keller, Denise Sandquist, Levana, Amina, and Amy, and would really like to thank you once again for being part of this event. Perhaps a little introduction of what the UK-Indonesia Tech Hub is. We first operated in Indonesia here in market under the initiative of the UK government to forge partnerships between the UK and Indonesia in the area of technology to stimulate local digital economies and build high-end digital skills to drive sustainable jobs and growth since September 2019. And so we launched a number of programs to support the ecosystem pre-COVID, and then resorted to shift our focus to support the crisis mode of the pandemic, where we started focusing on empowering women, marginalized women, as well as underrepresented groups who were very heavily affected by the pandemic. And those initiatives were delivering capacity building programs on increasing digital literacy, financial literacy, as well as entrepreneurship for the likes of people with disabilities. So we do take very much pride in our work, and the work that we do go beyond engaging with just key players in the tech sectors, but also empowering those vulnerable communities that really needed access to information, access to learning, which also affected those in the rural areas who did lack connection to the internet and have infrastructure issues across the region. Of the country in Indonesia. Why we have decided to link up and do these kind of projects. First of all, we find that it is important to not only empower the growing economy, especially the digital economy here in market and throughout the region, but also empowering women, which we see a large growing number within the tech sector. Around the world today, we see 250 fewer women than men online, and there are limited access often concerning women living in sub-Saharan Africa and rural parts of Asia as well. So there are still numbers that we can help to support, such as women in ICT jobs, top management, academic careers. For instance, women worldwide, 20% are less likely to hold a senior leadership in positions in mobile communication companies. And perhaps this number grows, but last statistics refer to 8% of investing partners are women in the top 100 venture capital firms. There are still gender gaps in the area of STEM, and software development still seems to be mostly a male-dominated club, although we do see a rising number in female engineers. So empowering women is essential, not only for this program, and we do value that throughout as an initiative here at the British Embassy, but I believe also through the UK government initiative, where we do champion gender equality and inclusivity throughout anything that we do in market and beyond. So the Nurture to Scale program, which Endeavor is part of, EndeavHER, as this program today, is what came from a brainstorming conversation that we had pretty early on this year, from stating a mission on how we could find ways to better support growing startups, especially female-owned startups, tech-based or tech-enabled startups, as we deliver the program. And now, today, we have acquired 35 impactful startups in the market to take part in this Nurture to Scale program with Endeavor, and 12 of them are female-owned. So the collaboration with Endeavor this time around is actually a first for us, one of a kind, and hopefully it will not be our last, as it is such a exhilarating energy as well to be able to join forces and create impactful changes through the likes of this program. So I do hope that you will enjoy today's session, sharing session from our female bosses today. And we hope through programs with Endeavor like Nurture to Scale and events like Endeavor, we'll continue to amplify the importance of empowering women globally, and to know that today we are playing an important role in doing that. So wishing you all a really great session ahead, and of course, great weekend ahead. And thank you so much for letting me be part of this event today. Back to you, Rika.
Thank you very much, Oki. Before we get started, I have a gentle reminder to everybody here. We highly recommend you to spread the word about today. Share your key takeaways from today's session and share it on social media using the hashtag #EndeavHER. And for those who are viewing the session on YouTube, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat. Okay, everybody, the moment is finally here that everybody is waiting for. Today we have with you 5 phenomenal female founders in one panel. We have today Denise Keller, who is a TV personality, producer, celebrity, and yoga instructor. Amina Sugimoto, co-founder and CEO of Fermata, Inc. Denise Sandquist, co-founder and CEO of Fika. Levana Sani, co-founder of Nalagenetics. And finally, Amy Zheng, co-founder and CEO of Amazin'Graze, who will be moderating the session. Today's session will focus on how female executives can contribute to the rise to manage physical and mental health, and how it influences the way we lead their businesses. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our moderator, Amy. Amy, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Rika. And thanks, Oki, for introducing us. And we're super excited to be here today. So for everyone's purposes, my name is Amy. I am one of the co-founders and the current CEO of Amazin'Graze. And for those of you who don't know what Amazin'Graze is a snack producer, a breakfast producer. We make healthy, delicious, nutritious food for the Southeast Asian community. And now we're present in Australia and China and even the US as well. And And we started off as pretty much every home baker who, utilize their home kitchen to make something that they think might have a chance in the market. And now we're, 6 years later, we're really focused and really happy with where we are and the journey that we came a long way. And I think in line with today's topic, we are pretty much an all girls founding team. It's two of my co-founders, and pretty much 90% of the management team are women. And so, you can walk into one of our meetings and you kind of feel like we need to protect the men in the room because there's just so many females. So it's a lot of fun. I really love having that kind of environment and having a highly female-powered organization. So I think, for all of you who've joined today, it's just such a great occasion to have this kind of event where we have 5 women, pretty much from all over Asia. And I could say, I'm currently in Melbourne, Australia, working remotely, even though my team is working across, Malaysia and Singapore. We also have Denise, who's based in Denise Keller, who's based in Singapore. Levi is in Jakarta. I know Denise Sandquist is in Ho Chi Minh City. And last but not least, Amina is in Tokyo. So 5 different cities, 5 women who are all doing, something amazing and really interesting and super diverse. And hopefully we can actually bring their, working style and their insights to all of the audience here, so you can learn and be inspired by what these ladies are doing. So without further ado, I would like to get each of the panelists to speak about, introduce themselves and maybe a 2-minute introduction about what they do. So I will maybe have Denise Sandquist. Why don't you go first?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. Thanks for this opportunity. So my name is Denise Sandquist. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Fika, which is Asia's female-focused AI social and dating app. So I have a background in business economics from the Stockholm School of Economics. And I am born in Vietnam. I was adopted from Vietnam to Sweden, grew up in Stockholm, wanted to become a diplomat. So I did military service as military interpreter and interrogator in Russian. And after that, I worked at the British Embassy in Moscow. Was the same age as my Vietnamese mom was when she gave birth to me. Always wanted to go to Vietnam, came to Vietnam to look for birth parents, didn't find any, and thought I should learn Mandarin as well, since that would be good even if I wouldn't become a diplomat in business or just in life. And moved to China and a bit in Thailand and Vietnam before I came back to Sweden. So I lived in many different countries. And one of the things that led me to start Fika was when I found my Vietnamese mom in 2016. So I posted on Facebook, and a lot of nice people who I didn't know shared. And I started to think more about meaningful connections, how you can find a person that you really want to be connected to. And me and my co-founder, Oscar Singlo, who has a background in AI, wanted to create this social and dating app during which you get to know yourself based on personality tests. And after that, you can find a person in Fika through AI technology and continue the relationship in Fika if you find a great person for you in the couples version. So that is briefly about me. Very happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Denise. So I have to be honest, I haven't tried Fika, but I'm so excited that this app even exists. So hopefully we'll get to find out a bit more about the AI-powered dating app that's suited for women.
Yes.
So exciting. So next I want to introduce Amina all the way from Tokyo. Amina, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Nice to meet you, everyone. Excellent. My name is Amina, and I'm currently based in Tokyo. I founded a company called Fermata about 2.5 years ago, and we also have a branch in Singapore. What we do is we essentially are trying to create a new industry, empower a new industry called Femtech in Asia, starting off from Tokyo and Singapore. For those of you who haven't heard the term Femtech, it is a new emerging industry focusing on women's health, trying to solve women's health of issues using technology. And then there are quite a lot of different products, services emerging in the West, and also there are quite a few happening in Asia as well. And we're creating a platform where users, female, who have healthcare issues from menstruation all the way up to menopause can find product that match their current needs through our platform, and also helping companies, startups and big companies to come up with their own product and services within this industry. And I came back to Japan about 4 years ago, but before that, my father is actually from Malaysia and my mother is from Japan. We then moved to Africa when I was little. So I grew up in Africa, in Tanzania. I was educated in Europe, in the UK, and also in Germany. So I kind of do have a sort of, I spend more time outside of Japan, outside of Asia. But now that I'm back in Japan, I'm so excited to be a part of the panel that focus on female entrepreneurship in Asia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amina. Yeah, please go and check out fermata. I know it's mostly in Japanese, but it is absolutely awesome. And I'm so glad that there are founders like you who are doing something, on female health, or something that people don't really want to talk about. So excited to find out more about that. And next, I would like to introduce Denise Keller. Denise, could you tell us what you're currently up to, and a brief introduction?
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing awesome. I'm so excited to be on this amazing platform with such incredible women. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Denise Keller. I am based in Singapore, and I have been in the media for the last 20 years of my life. Pretty much lived in a box. And I started out really young. I became the first Singaporean MTV VJ in the region, which was at that time a pretty big thing because MTV was cool. Not saying that it's not cool now, but like it was pretty cool back then. And I was there for a good 7 years. And I have to admit that was probably the best time of my life because it really opened my eyes to the world. Not just music, but, youth culture and awareness culture surrounding youth. And I just felt like I was living my best teenage life at 21. But of course, with all good things, there are expiry dates. And I had this tenacity and passion for film and cameras. My father, having set up a more or less a camera company in Singapore back in the 70s. The Germans were, they still are big engineers. So, cameras have always fascinated me. So I decided to kind of push my way and knock on the Discovery Channel door and say, I'm available. I would love to become a travel host and do all the fun stuff. But of course, I got rejected multiple times, which was great, to learn from. But eventually I had this amazing opportunity to tell my story about my ethnicity, or more or less my culture, which is half Chinese Singaporean and half German, but I think they were more interested in my Chinese culture. And that was fascinating for me because I had known as much as I knew based here in Singapore, but there was so much more. So I landed in Malaysia, and I love Malaysia. I just love the culture, and I love the people, and I love the food. And I spent a good 5 years there traveling and hosting Passage to Malaysia. It became really successful. We were so happy about that show that we moved to Abu Dhabi, and from Abu Dhabi we ended up in China, and then the rest was more or less history because I spent a good time at Discovery for 10 years and ultimately became a producer of my own show. And then I developed afterwards a content creative agency called Keller Media. And my passion job is yoga teaching. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thanks, Denise. I'm going to be Singapore in January. So if you ever have a class going, I would love to come and see you. We're fascinated by what you're doing and your transitions too.
I snack on all of your snacks, by the way, just FYI.
Oh, that's amazing. I also learned how to teach yoga. Not that I do it anymore, but I absolutely love yoga. So excellent. And last but not least, I would like to introduce Levy. Her name is Levana, but for the she's been kind and allowed us to call her Levy. So yes, Levy, your turn to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet everybody here. Thanks so much for inviting me. My name is Levi. I'm the co-founder and CEO for Nalagenetics. Nalagenetics is a company or an idea that we had in 2016 when we were working with, or I was working at Genome Institute of Singapore with my co-founders. At the time, the idea was we wanted to empower personalized medicine, especially for Asian ethnicities or ethnicities that was not being looked into in the genetic study sphere. So I think the statistics was 80% of all genetic discoveries were found in Caucasian populations, which means that a lot of the findings may miss some of details or phenotypes, as we call it, that is more common in different ethnicities. We were very enamored with the idea. We started with one project actually based in Papua to personalize medicine for leprosy patients. And then I went to business school and found that, actually there's a lot of opportunities as these Asian countries move into value-based care. There will be a lot of need for better outcomes and less cost in healthcare, and that's where genetic testing and all these technologies can find its home. So we're very excited to kind of ride that wave together with thought leaders in the region and some people who are very excited about the idea as well. I personally am super excited about this idea because my grandpa actually had really bad reactions to medications that caused seizures at the end of his life, and just watching him struggle through the confusion that was caused by the different drugs that he was taking, and the fact that like one doctor could figure it out by understanding that one drug generally should be taken less in some ethnic populations, Asian, and in my case, really solved the issue for him at the end. But that type of knowledge, I think, is very important and it's very powerful, and we're excited to kind of give hopefully more of that story in the rest of the region as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Levi. I think that's a pretty, there's one thing I take away from what you just said was actually 80% of the current genetic testing comes from, I guess the Caucasian population. And so there's so much therefore we don't know about the Asian population, which is quite crazy because I'm guessing Asian population probably makes up most of the world's population, or at least is, I would say 20% of the global population. So that's really awesome, and we can't wait to hear about some of your insights into the relationship between genetics and our personalities, or how we should be living our lives. So thanks so much for joining. Okay, well, I think this is the time when we can deep dive a little bit more into each of the personalities here and the fascinating things that you've been doing. So I'm just going to call one of you out at a time, and I'll start with Denise Keller. So you mentioned MTV, and I think MTV is still really cool. I grew up with MTV, and I never thought being a TV personality means living inside a box, and that makes complete sense. But from our perspective, from Moggle's perspective, we have no idea. So I guess can you tell us a little bit more about the switch between being inside the box to producing, because that seems like something that's totally out of the box, and now being going to wellness and teaching.
Well, isn't it interesting? We're all in boxes right now. So I guess at the time when I was auditioning for MTV, those shoes were really big to fill. At that time, the reigning female VJ was Donita Rose, and she was just incredibly amazing and so popular and so wonderful. I had no TV experience. I was, modeling in the region. I was based in Hong Kong, so I had absolutely zero idea of what it took to be in front of a rolling camera. I mean, yeah, you do a couple of commercials here and there, but you're not talking in front of the camera. And so the audition was very intimidating, especially when you're told that there were 5,000 girls auditioning for the role. That's a lot of girls if you think about it. But I think what was interesting for me, at least, the takeaway for the audition was that I was just very passionate about what I liked and what I liked at the time. And I just told my story with authenticity. I mean, that's the word right now, right? Everything has to be authentic. But at that time, I didn't even know that word. I was just like, I really like music and I know my music. I know band members. I know the history. I know this. And I just rattled off based on what I knew. And before you know it, I was called in for the second audition and the third audition. And then on my 21st birthday, I got the contract to be an MTV VJ, which was frightening because it's a massive role. And then the training began, because it's not like, oh, you're an MTV VJ overnight. You have to like win an audience. You have to kind of connect with an audience and also kind of explain who you are as a new person on camera. And that's really hard to do. That takes a long time to do. There was also a probation period. So it doesn't mean like you got the golden ticket and you're going to last forever. There's always an expiry date. So they, would tell you like you have 6 months to prove yourself. And that's nerve-wracking, because there were many times I would lock myself in the toilet and just cry my eyes out because I didn't feel I was good enough. There was a lot of self-doubt. There was a lot of people criticizing me, a lot of people saying that I was too skinny. I didn't look the part of a VJ. And there was just an overwhelming amount of critique. But I guess what I had that maybe at the time a lot of girls didn't have was, I would say tenacity, is that I didn't give up. I never wanted to give up, even though I failed, even though I felt I sucked. And I would just continuously strive to do better and learn. And learning was on set, meaning you had to learn your team. You had to learn your cameraman. You had to learn from your producer. You had to learn from your intern. You had to learn from everybody, because everyone behind the camera makes you the person in front of the camera, right? And I think that was a really special and unique time for me to really integrate and grow with a team. And then I realized how much I loved the teamwork, and I wanted to learn more. And I think Discovery Channel was exactly that platform that gave me the opportunity to become an assistant producer and eventually become a producer for my own show, which was the most exciting time of my life. So not only being in front of the camera, living in the box, and trying to be authentic and connecting with an audience, but also learning the technicalities and the basis of teamwork behind the camera was really important and very valuable to me. It didn't happen overnight. It wasn't one of those things you just get like, oh, I just apply for a job. You have to train and learn and understudy and be humble. You have to be very humble to learn new things and new skills, because production is like military. There is an order, and if you overstep somebody, you might piss someone off and you may not rise. So you really want to have that humility to always learn and study and grow. And I think that's what made my job so exciting, because I was always enthusiastic and always hungry to learn new things. Yeah, that's probably why I became a yoga teacher too, because I was hungry for yoga too.
I mean, were you practicing yoga all through this time, or was it something new that you picked up?
Well, yeah, I was actually. I started yoga really young. For one reason only. I had an injury as a young child. I had a shoulder injury from gymnastics, and it just became really annoying. And I was a very skinny child as well. So, my manager at the time had said, like, have you heard of yoga? It's really good for you. And I'm like, what is that? Like, is it something to eat? It was so exotic back then. It wasn't like what it is now, right? Like Lululemon leggings and like yoga studios, and it's hip and your matcha latte. No, back then it was like, no, you're going to either a temple or you're going to a community center learning from aunties. And that's how I learned yoga. I learned it from the amazing surroundings of women who were all mothers or aunties, and took a 15-year-old girl to teach me about slowing down and not being so energetic, like finding the balance between being who I was, but also being really present in my breath and what that awareness was all about. So I think yoga was with me all throughout, and I applied it a lot in production because situations get really stressful, to say the least. And, the times when I used to run to the bathroom and cry my eyes out, I kind of converted that to breath work. And I would convert that to like yoga poses. Like, I'm a warrior 1, I'm a warrior 2, before I would start my time on camera. And I think it somehow worked for me mentally, to kind of stabilize the emotions. Because, us women, we can get a little heightened and we can get a little excited. So nice to, temper it down a little bit and feel empowered in what you're doing. So yoga definitely was everywhere I went, no matter what I did.
Well, everyone, if you want to practice some, warrior 1 or warrior 2 before you go into a pitching session, please try that. That's a great tip. And my last question for you here is, female producers, are they common? Are they uncommon? What does it mean to be a female producer? How did that get treated in the industry?
That's a really good question. In fact, there are amazing amount of female producers now, but I think back in the day when I started, there were a lot of great producers in lifestyle and music shows like MTV. In fact, majority of my producers were women. But then when I entered documentary film, aka Discovery Channel, it was pretty vast. There weren't many females around, and it was also very intimidating because documentary film productions are usually very masculine. And for almost a good 10 years, I was the only woman on set. And that is a tough world, especially when you are, you on the road for almost the whole year of your life. Like, you haven't seen your home in 1 year and you're traveling with boys. It can really affect you a little bit. Like, one thing I learned is that I was extremely masculine in front of the camera and also behind the camera when I was working with boys. But when I'd come home, I'd like to decompress and just, kind of accept that I'm still a woman, because it's a different kind of energy. So to answer your question, at the time, there weren't many female documentary producers. And it was interesting, to say the least.
I can imagine. No, thank you so much for that. I think, it's that what's inspiring, amongst many things is the fact that you managed to break through these industries, and you managed to transition and do all these things that, I think is a great example for us to learn from. So this is, it's super good hearing from you, and I will come back with more questions soon. So I think next would be Levana. So, it's also, you're also in an industry that's, I'm guessing, is very male dominated potentially, and you're working on genetics, right? So tell us more about your findings. How does it relate to women or women of Asian descent? Well, I'm sure everybody wants some tips and your insights. Okay, all right. Well, I think Levy might be coming back soon, so I will actually go to Amina. So, for those of you who are not sure what fermata does, please go and check them out. I thought there was one sentence on your website which I really love, which says "transform taboo into triumphs." And that really stuck with me, right? Like, transform taboo into triumphs. And I feel like this is what being a female or being, a female leader has, I mean, this could be my life, transforming a taboo, of being a founder or being a CEO, of wanting to progress in our careers and our lives, and making that into a triumph. So I guess, let's hear about, how you're seeing the transition of female empowerment and the tech and the health tech that's growing right now.
Right. Okay, that's a huge, big question. Well, I come from academia. So until about 4 or 5 years ago, I was actually working for in university, studying public health, health economics, access to medicine. So my interest didn't really come from women's empowerment, women's health. I was more interested in how can we create a system, policies that allows people to have better access to certain healthcare or medicines that they need. And when I looked at so after I left academia, I was interested in sort of entrepreneur, sort of startup world. So I started to work at a venture capital in Japan. And then I realized that the health tech, there are a lot of capital money going in. And there's one sort of part of health tech, which is sort of women's health, was sort of emerging. There was an industry happening in the West, but was not so much, the focus wasn't there. And at the time, it was crazy to think that half the population is women. But when we pitch a health tech product that focuses on women to a VC or capitalist, they think that it's a niche market. And how can it be a niche market when there's a half of the population? There should be tons of capital money out there.
It's because you're speaking to a bunch of men, right? I mean,
right. So, I mean, when I look around the room when I was working at the VC, 90%, 95% were men. And obviously it's not their fault. Like physically they're different. So just like it's difficult for us to understand how their body function. It's really difficult for them to understand what's the period pain like. How is it like to be, pregnant? But at the same time, for women as well, like unless you go through a pregnancy, unless you're going through menopause, it's also difficult for us to understand different health needs at the different life stages that we're at. Yeah, so I was like, it's kind of weird that there's no market here. Why don't you start creating a market? And the first thing I did was, because I was working at a VC, I contacted approximately 200 sort of femtech companies around the world and asked them, could you just send us your product to Japan? I'll do an exhibition and then just show it. So at the time, my firm had a huge venue in Shibuya. I don't know if you guys have been to Tokyo, but the city with the big crossing. Just next to it, I just hosted a femtech exhibition with about, I think of those 200 companies, about 50 companies sent their product for free. And then we advertised the exhibition just on SNS. And I was hoping that it's just going to be a small event. And then turned out that we only prepared about 60 tickets. It turned out that over 150 people came from the south of Japan to the north of Japan. And I also prepared food and drinks and alcohol and all that. That was before COVID. But no one was interested in having drinks. They were just standing in front of these products and chatting. And what's interesting about this femtech product is that these physical product sort of represents female sort of health issues, the things that we won't be able to discuss because it has been taboo in most culture. But having a product in front of us, it allows us to have a conversation about it. Because it's not like you're talking about your own health issue, but you're just talking about that product. And it's also allowed us to have a conversation about a particular health issue with men or partner, family, and friends. And that's how we start to create this community and environment where people could discuss and chat about health issues that has long been taboo, and especially around women's sexual wellness issues, a pleasure to do with sexual pleasure, menopause, infertility, all that kind of stuff. Having product in front of us, strange enough, we can actually talk. Without having the product, it's really difficult for us to have the same expectation, right? Like we're not sure if we're talking about the same thing, but with the product in front of us, it allows us to have a conversation. And that's how I started to sort of have a conversation with the politician, with the ministry, top ministry individuals. And they start to realize that, we thought that we understood that there's a health needs for women, but now that I think we fully understand, because the product is in front of us and that kind of represents, and it kind of shows that there's a market and then there's a cash value into it. Does it make sense? So
I
initially,
don't know if we should frame it as a health issue. I actually think it's absolutely a female empowerment. It's not an issue.
yeah.
It's
So
it's
health
a right.
needs. Maybe health needs is the right term.
Health needs. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's an essential need that men and female both have, and there's no point denying it.
So it started off as just having a small exhibition in Tokyo. In the last 2 years, we went to discuss with the policymakers. Now there's a working group within the Japanese government. The term femtech is now listed in the budget for national budget. So they're actually, we can actually spend quite a bit of money from the government. And they're now redesigning the pharmaceutical affair law in Japan, so that it sort of fits with the needs of women's health. And last October, we managed to host a huge exhibition at Roppongi Hills, which is one of the cities in Japan, hosting over 157 products from 6 regions, 27 countries, and over 1,600 people came from the government official to big farms. And so, yeah, what I wanted to say is that having a product in front of us managed us to be able to talk about healthcare needs, which has long been taboo, and that's sort of changing the dialogue around women's health in Japan at the moment. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, it does. It's awesome. Thank you so much, Amina. I guess, on a similar, I guess when we go to women's health tech, related to tech, I guess will be what Denise Sandquist is doing with Fika, which is using technology and AI-powered technology to actually help women find their partners, or however long they want it to be, in light of freedom for women. So Denise, can you tell us a little bit more about that? And do you claim, or do you support women, using it to find their soulmates?
Yeah, that's some really good questions, Amy. Thank you. So Fika is, some people maybe think that Fika, which is a social and dating app, is only for women, but of course there are men and women on Fika. It's just that looking at other big dating apps, I think that everyone knows about Tinder, for example, and 25% of the users are women. Looking at Bumble, which is a female-focused dating app, around 30% of the users are women. And looking at overall, for users, it's most challenging and difficult to attract women to dating apps and social dating apps for different reasons. And the reason why me and my co-founder Oscar wanted to start Fika was that I was in Vietnam 5 years ago. I found my Vietnamese mom, thanks to a post that went viral. People shared, thought about how can you create meaningful connections with people that you would like to meet, that would be suitable with. But at the same time, I was also 25, and a lot of people asked me, can't you introduce me to someone? Do you know someone that would be suitable for me? And I didn't know that much about the dating climate in Vietnam back then. And they said, why don't you download a dating app? Why doesn't it work for you? And most people said that I don't feel safe. I don't know who's really behind the account. It feels like the image is a little bit not serious. I don't really think that I can find my soulmate. I don't think I can find a really suitable person on any of these apps. So basically, Fika is female focused in the sense that we take safety very seriously. So I think that in the world, I mean, when you go out, right, you always have to ask your friend, you said, okay, can you send me a message when you're home? I mean, we have to think about security in another way than I think that, then I'm quite sure that men have to. So at Fika, everyone who enters the app needs to verify themselves. And of course, this is a security measure for women and for men, but we have a verification rate about 50%. So a lot of the people that want to come into Fika, they can't because they upload fake photos, photos in other ways go against our guidelines. So that is one way in terms of product. And then also we can see that women, in comparison to men, when using dating apps, they're more reluctant to like a little bit more, like maybe guys like everyone, more proactive and forward in that sense. And women are a little bit more reluctant. So there are other ways in that you can encourage a sort of behavior that you can encourage to be proactive, encourage to like with different Fika coins, we can encourage a certain behavior. And I think that when it comes to a product and an app, it's very important just in the marketing and branding to decide like what is your tone of voice, who are you aiming for to target. And since I am female, and actually most of our employees at Fika are female. I think that, I mean, we're all women here today, and we're discussing mental health and health when it comes to women, because women, we are a little bit different than men in different senses. And I think that who are better at that to create like a female focus, this means like a product, and then also like a tone of voice, a marketing, and a brand that will be more suitable for women and women ourselves. And looking at many dating apps and a lot of products in the world, they are actually created by men, maybe for women. But I think that there are many ways in terms of product in itself, but also just in terms of like, what do you want to be? What do you want to be as a brand and a product? And for us, it's empowerment, authenticity, and growth that are our core values. And we really believe we take the approach that it starts with yourself. And if you look at maybe other apps, it's more maybe you don't really know who the person is, maybe quite shallow. It's just based maybe on mostly appearance, and really take the approach that like find out about you, who you are yourself first. So yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and there are different ways in terms of that, how we are really positioning ourselves to be a product that would be attractive for women to use. But yeah, that is the overall answer to that.
Great. So what has the machine learned that is, more of an app that for women versus for men? Like, what are women looking for on a dating app versus what is a man looking for? And is there any interesting differences?
Yeah, I think the interesting difference is that's what I mentioned, that you can see that like we of course we have a lot of data. So in order to do AI machine learning, you have to have a lot of data. So now when we're adding in these, we have a personality test. So that is a way to collect data. You collect data in the way that people behave in the app. We see how long time you spend on different profiles, how many people you like, how many people you don't like a lot of data. So what we can see so far is that men, guys, like everyone, like a lot of women, but unfortunately, women don't like the guys that much, and that's an interesting challenge, because I mean, with the current matching model that we have, I mean, in the future, we're looking to make Fika into something like, want to revolutionize the way that we connect and date. So now it's just like, you like me, I like you, and then we can chat. So this is the current model. So of course it's a problem, right? If women don't really want to like, that is one thing. And yeah, we can also see that overall, like before, we're really pushing that we are a little bit safer, like we are safer. We have these core values in place. We are very active at universities because we want to empower us like a young generation. We have workshops and seminars. I think that the split between gender, we had more men before, so closer to 75-25, maybe very similar to other dating apps. But we can see that the more like we communicate, the more we are a lot of women. We're speaking to many women, and we are telling them that you can be a little bit proactive in your social and dating life. It's culturally okay to be at Fika, at the dating app. We can see that we now are closer to 40% women. That is also something. So overall, it's going to be very interesting, because like AI and machine learning, you have to have a lot of data. And the more users you have, the more they use the app, the more data you have. So we are building this actually multimedia right now. So we believe the first step is to understand yourself in anything that you do, career, personal, whatever you want to do. You have to sort of take a time to, am I introverted, extroverted? Like, what do I like in life? What do I want right now? And based on who you are, we believe that there's nothing really like right or wrong 100%. It's not going to be like Fika's AI is going to be so amazing. So you open up the app and then suddenly you see like the love of your life, because like love of your life and like the person you get along well with, it's a lot of different things, right? It's like physical attraction, like what you want right now in your life, and also we base a lot on these like MBTI 16 personalities test. So if I am this ENTJ type, then my verse match would supposedly ENTJ, which is the same person as me. But the thing is that we believe that it's a lot about how you, based on who you are, you can learn about yourself. You can also learn how you get along well with others. So if I am extroverted, for example, how could I get along well with an introverted person? I'm more like a thinking person. How would I create a good connection with a feeling person, and so on? So we're creating this multimedia that we integrate also in the app. So we're having a lot of content when it comes to relationships, self-growth, single life, to different topics. So the first step, find out who you are. Then in the app, you can find out about, based on who you are, who you're suitable with. And then the more tests you do in Fika, the more you use the app, the better our AI becomes. And then we are not afraid to push these people up in the app, because we want you to find a perfect match for you. And that is also a problem that a lot of people think that, why should I use a dating app? I cannot find someone that's suitable for me. And that I can believe that people think that, because a lot of people don't think about that. If you download a dating app and if you find your boyfriend or girlfriend, what happens then? You take away the app. You should anyway, maybe take away the app. But we're having this couples version. So if you find, when you find love, you can enter the couples version, the couples mood. So then other single people cannot look at you. I cannot look at other single people. And then you gamify, continue your relationship. Because in Sweden, anyway, we have about 56% divorce rate. So it's a one challenge to get to know who are you. The second one is to find a person suitable. And the third thing is also to like keep the relationship together, right? Like going on dates, building your timeline together. So that is another thing. And that is why we believe that it's clear that, of course, you can meet someone on a dating app like anywhere. It's just that they are not completely optimized for that, because then they will use, if it works too well, they will use users. So that is how
it sounds like a catch-22. I mean, I know a lot of people will pay a lot of money to have an app that can provide a soulmate. So thank you so much, Denise. We're I know I'm going to download that personality test straight away after this. So I guess in the line of personality, I think Levi, how does genetics determine your personality, and what have you been finding through your research?
First of all, I'd like to apologize if my signal is not the best. I'm in a quarantined room, so I can't really go anywhere. And but the question was about whether or not your genetics can tell you about your personality. Is that okay?
And your working style.
Yeah, genetics can tell you a lot of things, and it is impactful in determining anything about you, but it never is going to be the only factor that determines something about you. And so it doesn't have this deterministic value, I think, for a lot of very complex traits like leadership or personality. So I think the industry that I'm in is a very wide range of application. It can be defined as something that is highly medical, and has to have a 95-98% accuracy for it to be implemented. We need to do clinical trials similar to a drug or any other medical technology. And it can be defined as something that is for entertainment value, for something that people want to discover themselves more. And it doesn't have to be medical in value at all. I think for us, genetic testing, we think that there's a lot of responsibility that comes into managing someone's genetic information. And I've seen personally, I think I'm inspired by the story that happened to me and my co-founder's family, that genetic testing can, in some cases, be life-saving. And that's what we decide to focus on. So we're very much closer to the medical technology side. That being said, genetics does play a role in your personality, and it makes you. There are studies that show that it actually correlates very well with your 7 different ways of learning. If people have heard that, there's a branch of science and psychology and child development that that shows that you have different ways of learning, like visuals or by doing it, or other types of brain stimulation. And it's actually very helpful to personalize kids' learning as they grow. There's a branch of science in that. It's something that we also don't focus on, but also, yeah, genetics is very interesting for that as well. I think the underlying benefit of genetics in all of this is knowing things earlier before it manifests into um, the thing, right? So for the kids' development, it would be very useful because, for example, this kid would not be able to fill in a survey or they can't convey their own interests yet. So genetic testing can be useful for that. The challenge is really figuring out where genetics can play a part or give value versus giving more risk than benefit. So a counter argument to genetic testing for personality is what if people feel like it doesn't resonate with who they are? So it's a very interesting industry, but yes, for sure, genetics impacts leadership and your personality and how how you interact and lead.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for us, we think quite simplistically about this. We're like, look, if my parents don't have it, then I shouldn't have it. But actually, sometimes you do. And they're like, well, where does it come from? So that's all really interesting. And actually, I think for a lot of the audience here, what we're probably really interested in is as women or as people, men and women from, I guess, the Asian ethnicity, what should we be careful of? Because you said it's about making sure you're addressing the issue before it manifests. So what are the things we need to pay attention to?
Yeah, I think for being I think for us as different ethnicities or stuff like that, I think it's right now the industry is battling access. There's just not enough genetic testing for different applications and purposes. So number one, if you see and you are interested, get it for yourself. It's a great tool to know about yourself. If your doctor offers it to you, it's a very good indication that the doctor wants to personalize your care, and oftentimes it's good and it's improved.
I think we have a little bit of issue with a line, but okay, you know what? We will hear more from Levy very soon. So I guess, I want to go to one last question before we open it up to the floor. I know the audience has sent through some questions too. But Oprah had said, or she did say that women can have it all, just not at the same time. So I thought, that was really interesting. And I think a lot of the audience pretty much have similar questions. It's like, okay, well, you are all doing everything, all these things, whether it's hosting or whether it's being a CEO or a co-founder or pitching or, running your own yoga studios or being a mom or being a daughter or being a friend or being a wife or a girlfriend or whatever it is. So how do you define that for yourself? Like, do you think women can have it all? And what do you think of having it not at the same time? I guess, we can go to Denise Keller first.
Yeah, okay. I think in my situation, it's quite true that you can't have it all in the same time, because when you're in front of the camera or if you're in the public eye, you are a certain age, right? There's always this element of how youthful you are on camera as a woman. And I was very mindful not to feel pressured by that, in the sense of like, oh, you're getting to this certain age, so therefore you can't do this anymore because, you're in that mommy stage. And, you get a lot of these labels, and it's unfortunate that we have so many stigmas here in Asia about always being youthful as a woman. I feel that age is really just a number, but I think in my world, it was a little bit more extreme because, you have to make executive decisions, whether or not you want to be on TV or whether you want to start a family, for example. So in my case, I wanted to reach a certain level in my career and really focus on that, and eventually return home and, you know, have my life back. So, you know, 20 years of being in the media industry does take a certain part of your personal life away. And so when I came back from China, I made a very conscious decision to settle down and have a family and, you know, grow my personal life. So I do agree to a certain degree with Oprah, because I don't think I could have, you know, had a baby when I was, you know, traipsing China mountains and rice fields, because it's such a physical job. But yeah, it's finding that balance and being really conscious of your timeline as well.
Thank you. Yeah, Levy, we have you back. Actually, we might invite you to finish off what you were saying, but we will also like you to answer, do you think women can have it all, but just not at the same time?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about the signal. Yeah, no, what was I saying? So differences in ethnicities, I think to a certain degree for sure. So personalized medicine is a great avenue for that, which is a lot of differences in when you're taking blood thinners or even pain medications. Some people can take more than others, and generally Asian population actually have a higher frequency of poor metabolizers or intermediate metabolizers for some pain medications, which means that you should actually be taking more or can take more compared to the standard dose. So that's like the type of testing that may be beneficial for
Are you
different
saying
ethnicities.
Asian women can take more pain?
Need more painkillers.
We can't take as much pain. Oh, okay. I always thought it was the opposite.
No,
Okay.
no, it's not the pain, it's the response to the medication.
Okay, okay, got
If
it.
you do
Okay.
need medication, which I do, for example, every time of the month, I know that I should probably take more than what is intended. It's not that my pain is worse than the others. I think that's the most dangerous part, is that when a medication's not working, especially we work with some psychiatry doctors, a lot of their patients think their pain is different than other patients, or their case is too bad to be handled or something like that. But it's not that at all. It's just that their metabolizer profiles are different than others, and so they just need to tweak their medication dosage or even the type of medications that they're taking. So if the doctor has the type of tool in their arsenal, right, so they can control the narrative very differently. They can say, no, it's not you, it's just the way that we practice. This is a new tool, we're going to try different stuff, and hopefully this works this time. So stuff like that. I think becoming aware that it's actually just everyone's just made differently, and that one medication for everybody just is a silly notion to begin with. So just like making available those tools as much as possible is going to be our mission for a long time. It's going to take time though.
I just need to go out to the audience. Please don't go ahead and take more pain medicine. Get professional advice.
Yes, please do. Yeah, involve your doctors in this. If your doctor doesn't, call us. Yeah, so in terms of taking or having it all, but not in the same time, that's actually one of the best advice I've ever gotten as well from another woman entrepreneur. I was very nervous seeing all my friends basically moving on with their lives and building families and stuff, and I think absolutely true that you can focus on certain things more than others in the beginning, and that it's okay to actually not follow a standard path, especially as we know that this journey that we're on may take a little bit longer than usual, and it may take a lot more effort and energy than usual, and it takes a lot of helpful around us as well. So I completely agree with that. The funny story though, my mom, when I Can you guys still hear me? I hope you can. My mom has always thought, of course, you are supposed to do everything. We're women. We have to do everything. We have to be mom, and we have to work, and we have to take care of other people. So I think that mentality has always been in me for a long time. But I think figuring out in a way that is mentally healthy for a lot of us, and making sure that it's not, sometimes it's never just going to take one person to do all these things. I think it's important to have that support group that is with you for a long time.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for sharing that, Levy. I really can relate to what your mom said, as in this is probably what we all hear is, of course you can do it all, you can work and still have kids and look after your family and pretty much keep the house clean. And there was a book I read recently called When the Body Says No, by Gabor Mate. I don't know if you ever heard of him, and it's actually quite a somber read, but basically he's saying, a lot of he studied a lot of cancers and neuro diseases, and he's finding that actually people who there's a higher incidence of people who can't say no, that end up getting sick. And he's just can't figure out why. And I think it's because, the social expectations on people, especially in the role of being this female person in today's society, is that we need to be everything. We need to do everything well, and our body's just got to shut down. So I think that's a really serious and really important topic that we should all be having. So Amina, what do you think?
I would kind of do resonate with what you just said. I personally don't want to have everything. The way I think is that the life is plus and minus. So it might look like someone is having, have everything, but there are parts that we maybe not being able to see, but there's a minus side. Life is up and down, right? So when I'm doing pretty well, if I'm happy with my career right now, there's always a minus side of maybe my personal life, or maybe I'm sick, or God knows. But that plus minus, it depends on the person. But I think that's how life is. So if one is doing really well with career, then there should always be a minus side. That sort of cancels out. And if someone's doing well with like 10 kids and families, and then maybe she doesn't have time to go for her career. It's just a good balance, I think, plus and minus. So if we try to have it all, maybe we can have it all, but not to the scale of that we want. That makes sense?
It does. And I think Japanese women are really one step ahead. I don't know if it's ahead or whatever, but I mean, we all hear of Japanese women not wanting to get married, not, even that, I think it's becoming a trend. So I think speaking from Japan is even a more interesting perspective.
Right. I guess there's we can focus on a female women, but at the same time, like, let's say someone who is very wealthy, for example, and it seems like getting a lot of being successful in his or her career, but then there's always a downside, right? That maybe we're not seeing it, but then there are something that the person is struggling with. So yeah, I mean, it's not like we have to have everything. That's at least how I see it.
So let's not ask women to have everything. So
I don't know.
that sounds like, that's one perspective. Absolutely. Denise Sandquist, what do you think? We'd love to get you on this. Denise speaks 6 languages, I just found out, and she's also a kickboxer, competitive kickboxer in Sweden. So she's crazy. She's done
a great introduction. Yeah, I think it's very interesting to hear all of your views on this. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot as well, during the years. I think there's that, you have it all, not at the same time. I think it's just like what you have, what is having it all. It's very different, right, for each person. And I think that is like one of the things that can stress women a lot, that you should be beautiful, you should be smart, but you should be, you should score high in many areas.
Okay, cool. So I think we all have experienced different internet challenges in our calls. So I think this is all fine. But you have the four of us and we will entertain you. So I am going to move on to the questions that I know some of you have sent questions before when you registered. And also currently there's some comments too. So I can't promise to get everything through, but I will try my best. Oh, sorry, Denise. Yes, please, please go on.
Okay, so yeah, about what is like having it all is. So I think this is one thing that puts a lot of pressure on women actually, because we should have a lot of things. But I think it's very important to just think about that having it all is different for different people, right? Having it all is different in different ages. I mean, when I was 20, I wanted different things in comparison now to when I'm 30, and I think that, I mean, having it all, I mean, what is all for you or for me? I mean, it depends a little bit about expectations, something I think that maybe Amina talked about. Maybe you don't want to have it all, right? But I mean, someone wants a nice house, like in, I don't know, Bali or something like that. And for some people, that's not so important. Some people want to have kids and a family. For others, that's not important. And when I was 20, I wasn't that focused on my career as I am now, of course. So for me then, having it all, so I speak 6 different languages, but I only grew up with Swedish as language. I was adopted from Vietnam, grew up with Swedish parents, and they actually also told me that in Sweden, it's very equal. Like, we don't focus that much on gender, in the sense that my parents never told me that, oh, you're a girl, like you're a woman, so you should be like this, you should have like this. So that was my upbringing. And I think maybe different from maybe Asian culture, my parents didn't tell me neither that I had to get into a certain university, that I had to study at all. Actually, it was just like, do whatever makes you happy. So that like became sort of my mindset. And I want to say, I think it was very important, like interesting what Levi said about this, how genetics shapes the personality and how we are. Because one of the reasons I want to find my birth parents was because when I became older, I thought about why am I the way I am and so and so. And then actually I found out that my Vietnamese father speaks Russian, Japanese, English, and Vietnamese, and so that's quite interesting. But overall, like, I think that for everyone, everything is very different. And like, I grew up only with Swedish as language, but I learned other different languages because my having it all before, it was, I just wanted to know more about the world, like traveling, discovering why people are the way they are. That was for me like everything. But I didn't have maybe, I don't know, boyfriend that at all times, if that was like that wasn't that important for me, and maybe then. And I think that it's with this having it all, it's like, I think that depending on your expectations, what you want in life, you could have it all. But of course, it's not reasonable to maybe, you sleep, you have 24 hours every day, you have to sleep at least some hours, and then you have to work and do certain things. So if you put the expectations, you should have I don't know, you should have this kind of income, you should have this, be a mom, you should be a perfect mom, perfect wife, amazing career, and just go in for it 100% in each area. Of course, that's not completely realistic, right? Because if you have 100%, you cannot do 100% in each and everything, because in that case, I mean, how is it possible to really like go extreme into, I don't know, do an Ironman or like do something with sports or with family, and at the same time, or like with work, and at the same time you should also like scoring very high on sleeping those 8 hours and eating healthy and so and so. So I think it's just having it all. I look at it very from like, what do I want right now? And I think that it's interesting with this. I have many friends in Sweden, unfortunately, that have like hit the wall in terms of like getting burned out. Young friends, like similar age to me. And I think that one thing is that a lot of them, they cannot say no. So they're getting pushed on work, they're getting pushed from social life, that you should do so much, you should be so much all the time. And I think it's very important with this discussion about having it all, that you should find your kind of balance. Because what is my kind of balance is not the same for you. What is important for me is not the same for you. And when we're living with these kind of social medias, we open up our phones and we look at this, like, we feed with these like perfect images, how life should be. We create this like fake image about like a person that is just perfect. And maybe if I look inside, if you look inside, maybe it's not that important for you to go to this event or to know these kind of people, or maybe to have this kind of career and so and so. But I think since we are so connected these days, it's positive and negative because we are feeded into this image about what you should have it all, especially as a woman, and you should be like this and so and so. So I would say something that I'm very passionate about is just that to like be the best version of yourself and then find out about what you want, what is important for you, and then having it all. I mean, that is a very like impossible, right? But then I think that you would come closer to having what you want, which is all for you.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And I guess just to finish this line of thought is, one is maybe we should frame it as we have a choice. So and maybe we're also covering a lot of your questions here, because I know 60% of the questions that's been sent in have been about what do you think of work-life balance, or how do you balance your work and your life, and how do you balance your role as a mom or as an entrepreneur, you know. So these are all really the same questions, and maybe the way to think about it is at least we have a choice today. And we should celebrate the ability to have a choice. The sense I get from the panelist here is, well, I mean, it's virtually impossible to be like, you know, a top class entrepreneur and a top class mom and wife, and recreational teacher on your on the days you don't sleep, right? So that's not possible. But hey, you have a choice, and I think what would be compassionate for us as both men and women, regardless of what the ethnicity you are, is to be compassionate about the choices that you and others around you are making. There are plenty of your friends that would decide to be like, you know, this whole work your butt off thing is not for me. This whole like living out of the suitcase is not for me. And there are plenty of people who are saying this, being with 2 kids, crying kids every single day. So I think it's totally okay to be, you know, that's a great choice for you. That's a great choice for me. And we are all making it work because we have choices today. So that's fantastic. I know there's another question, which is from the audience, which is, did you all, when you started your business, were you doing other jobs at the same time? And so, you know, what is the kind of like self-discipline lesson here? And I think any of you can come through and tell us a bit about perspective. And I think that really comes from a sense of, I think a lot of the audience here are maybe saying, well, I do want to do something else, but I'm I have something else that's really supporting me financially. So how did you guys do it? So I might be first to just comment. I couldn't. I had to quit my job and then start something new. I had no idea how anyone can have a full-time job and start something new, but I would love to hear from the panelists too. So feel free if any of you want to put your hand up. Great. Yeah. Go Denise.
Yeah. Yeah, I can share here, because when I started Fika together with my co-founder, I was working full-time at another company. I was having a C-suite position at that company. And with this, like having it all also, of course, like when you're working full-time at one company, you're starting up your startup on the side. We were self-funding. Of course, like, did I sleep as long as I should, as much as I should? No. Work out, yeah, I did, but did I see friends? Like, not that much. So the choice that me and my co-founder made, because with also like raising capital, it's also like, should you take in external capital? When should you do it? You want to bootstrap, like to what point and so on. And for us, we decided to self-fund Fika. We started to develop the app in June last year, and we did it with our savings. And that was a choice we made because we were so certain about like how to do it. Sort of, we wanted to come to, we talk about minimal viable product, like MVP. So we had heard that, like, we wanted to create an MVP ourselves because we didn't want to dilute ourselves too early on, like too much in the beginning. We also wanted this time to try out different things. So I actually quit my previous full-time job as late as in May, when we're also fundraising, or like we're just like about to talk with investors and so. And I think that like the reason why I quit then, and it was just like, that is like very important, I think, to acknowledge that my kind of balance is different from like another person's balance, and it's also like by priorities. And I think that the risk, if you are working For us, like I told you about, that is about illusion, about that we were secure, like confident about ourselves. We did this like kind of valuation. But I think that one of the bad things with maybe bootstrapping and having your other job when you're creating something else is that you it's going to be very difficult to maybe let go, maybe be fully dedicated. You will always think that, oh, if this doesn't work out, I still have this. So I think it's very important when you're doing like that. There's nothing right or wrong. I'm very happy how we did it. Now we raised, just closed our seed round last month, raised 1.6 million. But the way we did it was good for us. Could have done it differently? Yes, we could. But we always, me and my co-founder, we always talked. We talk every day, and we always sort of analyze when would it make sense for us to maybe take in external capital? When would it make sense for me? When couldn't I be such a good CEO and also running the business in terms of marketing? So my co-founder, he has a technical background, so more on the tech side, and I'm doing everything else, the other things. And we always we're being honest with ourselves that when is the alternative cost too high? And when we sort of came to that conclusion, then I quit my previous job, and it's been very good in terms of timing and so far. But I think that for me, it worked well. But would have had, since we only have 24 hours each day, so would have had performed even better if I would have quit immediately. Yes, maybe. But then we would also maybe had to fundraise earlier. So I think that these are some of the questions that if someone thinks about quitting your job, that you can ask yourself, and really also putting a deadline also, instead of when it's going well, but what is well? It can always go better, right? It's better now than it was 6 months ago. But that is I learned from me and my co-founder, and it worked very well for us. But I think that everyone should be aware of their own capacity in terms of as you said, Amy, maybe for you had to quit your job and then to focus fully. And even if I would say that I don't maybe sleep that much, and I have quite a lot of energy, so for me it worked out quite well. But of course it would have been, I could have been given even more percentages on my time during the day, obviously, if I quit earlier. So that is my input on it.
Thank you, Denise. I will move on to another question unless we have any inputs.
I do, just really briefly. Okay. I think in my world, there was this mantra that everyone said, especially in production, we always said to each other, sleep is for the dead. And that kind of motivated us to keep going, because ultimately what we did in documentary film is not just a one streamlined thing. You're not getting just one job done. You're getting multiple things done, and you have to have multiple solutions available right away. You have to be very flexible. You have to be malleable. You've got to have options. So I think having an open mind is also really important if you're juggling businesses, and not to kind of stress yourself out that you're doing this one thing really good and then you're not so good in the other thing, and then you have to make decisions and stuff like that. I think, yes, that's important, but I also think flexibility is very, very important when you are juggling. Because I had 5 different roles when I was juggling, TV and behind the camera, and then going home to host another show. Then I'd fly to Hong Kong and do this. So you just have to be really, really adaptable. But also your energy levels. I could do that in my 20s. I could sleep on 4 hours and coffee all day. I could probably still do that in my early 30s. But if you ask me now, forget it. I want sleep. and that's where that whole work-life balance is. You go, and you go and seize all the opportunities, everything that you can, until you can't anymore. That's what happened to me. I was just I'm burnt out now.
Yep. Thanks so much for sharing that. Amina, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm someone who never been employee. I never worked for a
lucky
company.
you.
Yeah. Well, I just I was in academia for a long time, but before I started my own company, what I did was that I work part-time, a contractor for the VC, and also work part-time contractor for a health tech company. And I think I was juggling around 3 different companies. And that was a really good opportunity for me to see the venture capital side as well as startup side, but at the same time, what's my capacity, like in terms of how long can I work? Do I prefer to work long hours, or do I rather take to have a 9 to 5? Just really tested out my work, the work-life balance that fits for me. And then after that, I started fermata. But then we're pretty. I think people start working around 10 o'clock and then finish by 5. We don't really work.
That is so nice. I never had those
And
hours.
then I think because how I prefer, we just focus. What's that? Can you hear me?
Where was this again? Which city?
I know.
In Tokyo.
Oh, what? This is not what I know of Tokyo. Okay.
Yeah, so I guess what I want to say was that, I mean, I just basically spent a couple of years trying out my ability, my interest, my work-life balance, working at different companies. And then when I started my own company, that's how I design it based on how I like to work. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, without further ado, I would like to go to the next question, which is from Valinia. Her question is, what are the abilities you gain as a professional leader you are most proud of, and how does that affect your other roles? For example, as a mom, as a friend, as any other personal roles that you may have. So what abilities did you gain as a professional leader that you're most proud of? Anyone?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. So, I think that there's so much things that I think that all of us, right, have learned when, like, every day when you're like an entrepreneur, when you're bumping into different things, like new challenges and so. So I think it's difficult to say something like in particular. I mean, I think that is why it makes it difficult to like choose something like in particular. But I think it's is that to always be prepared, I think, for like whatever life throws at you. And I think that's what makes a good entrepreneur, also like CEO, and when you're having your business, it's you have to be very agile, and you have to be prepared for that. Each day can be different, which is fun, right? That's why you choose this kind of life, and that's why you choose to pursue your dream. That's like how it is. So I think that the more I continue to like running Fika, we have now close to 35 employees. Every day is different. We are moving quite fast, having close to 1 million downloads in 1 year, and we're trying to really think outside of the box, because that is what you have to do. Because you have to be like you have to be innovative. You have to be prepared for different challenges and so. And I think that I was quite good at it before, I hope, but that's nothing in comparison to I think how this role has shaped me the latest year. It's a lot of things that I think that just like, things come to you, but that doesn't define you. What people think, doesn't completely like define you. What you care about, what I care about is my team, our like amazing like people at Fika, managers, and also like building the product, like creating, like just like executing the vision. And I think that has made me more just like relaxed when it comes to life, actually, even if it sounds strange, because I just know that every day is different when it comes to like relationships with friends, and like how I am as a person. Like I would say like quite relaxed. Relaxed in the sense that I know that things change, people change all the time, and the only thing that I can control here is myself. So I think that I'm more like confident in myself, and sort of that I can handle with the right team, with the right people, with the right mindset and different things. I could handle everything, that all the different challenges that life will throw at me. Like that is something that I learned.
Thank you. Any other comments before we close up? Okay, well, I've got a little tab saying our time is up. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Amina. Thank you both,
Thank
Denise.
you.
It's really great to have you. Levy, thank you. I know you're in quarantine right now, and thank you so much for joining. It was just such a pleasure and a privilege to speak to these powerful, compassionate, and self-aware females. And to the audience, I really hope that this was, worth your time and that you've been inspired and you have some things to think about. I know I certainly did. And to Endeavor and to the UK-Indonesia collaboration and the UK-Indonesia Tech Hub. So I'll hand it back to Richard. Thank you. And yeah, thanks for having me. See you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, everybody. So this will conclude today's event. That's it for today. I thank all the speakers today, namely Denise Keller, Amina Sugimoto, Denise Sandquist, Levana Sani, and our moderator, Amy Zheng. Thank you very much. And I'd like to also thank our partners, the British Embassy Jakarta and UK-Indonesia Tech Hub. Thank you very much for your support. And I'd also like to extend my thank you to all the community partners that were under the Nurture to Scale program. Thank you for all your support. Please, to everyone, to stay connected to us via social media. And we would like to keep the engagement going forward. And last but not least, I thank everybody who was able to view today's engaging discussion. I hope you were able to gain a lot of insight around managing work-life balance and how female entrepreneurs make it work so wonderfully. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing you again in our Endeavor event. Thank you. Goodbye.